It's the Musers, the podcast, Cowboys edition, Football Friends. It's George Dunham and Bob Sturm. We are football friends. And we're here to talk Cowboys with you because if we didn't do this, Bob, how would anyone possibly be ready for the next game?
There's no question. It's an unexplored space. Talking about the Cowboys, really, the rest of the media hasn't picked up on this yet. So let's get there first. Let's talk some Cowboys.
Let's do it.
Maybe we could start some sort of a trend regionally where people decide to find microphones and then talk about this football team.
There's just not enough Cowboys talk out there, really. So
no.
Let's get started with the really good stuff. But you got something. Before we talk about a scoregami of Cowboys 40, Packers 40, and get set for the New York Jets.
Right.
You got something for me.
Well, I do. And this one is, I'd like to think I'm prepared to answer this question, but I clearly wasn't this week, and so I wanted to bring it over to you. So these kids these days, they go to these places called bars, and in these bars, they might be drinking, they might be looking for that special someone that is missing from their life, or they might be playing bar trivia.
Oh, yeah.
And on this occasion, somebody up in Cheeseland thought of me as their ace in the hole, their phone a friend when they were playing barroom trivia. So they sent me a actual screenshot of what they were looking at. And they asked the following question. What was the original name of the Dallas Cowboys? Do you need the choices or do you know this?
I'm getting older. I need the choices. I think I will get this right, but give me the choices.
Okay. A, Steers. B, Pioneers. C, Ranchers. And D, Lone Stars. And then she says, do you know this? And I said, I guess not, because I'm almost positive they were always the Cowboys. This feels like a trick question.
Boy, that does, but I think answer A is what you're looking for, I think.
Okay, and you're right. It was the Steers.
Yeah.
But then I looked it up with my newspaper archives, and for the life of me, George, I can't find any, during the time. That's how newspapers handle things, is they are, they're boots on the ground. They are documenting history as it happens. And then what we have is, after the fact, somebody will have a story that anecdotally traces back to, let's say, 1958, and then we sort of rewrite history by putting the Steers as the proposed name in 1958. I'm just telling you, from a Fort Worth Star-Telegram and a Dallas Morning News standpoint, I don't see any traces of anything called the Dallas Steers in the 1950s, but it clearly was the Steers based on history accounts that go back there that might have been published in the 80s and 90s. So
okay.
Does that make sense? I don't really know. I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, I've heard that through the years. I don't know the backstory. It's taken me 4 weeks to get to the bottom of the Dallas Cowboys band.
Yes.
But I promise you, this is not a Matt Damon thing.
Not at all.
Next week, I will bring you the foremost historian on the Dallas Cowboys band.
I'm so excited
with details
about this.
of how long it lasted, why it ended, how it got started, what they played, everything you want to know. But
That's
I'm going to
awesome.
write down what's the deal with the Steers. I've just always heard that through the years, and I don't know the story behind it. Was it?
Would you in any way
problem
prefer
with the
it?
University of Texas? Maybe.
That's another great question. Can you imagine a parallel universe where you are rooting for the Dallas Steers every week, and how would that change things for you?
Steers. That's just a strange sounding name. Steers.
It is. Although it feels
Okay.
like something the people of the 50s would have come up with, if I may say something.
Late 50s, early 60s, Steers would have made a lot of sense. But, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of that one, too.
Okay.
I think we've solved the Cowboys band problem, and we will actually, this is not a bad Matt Damon thing. We will bring you the complete answer to that on next week's episode. But we got to jump into a scoregami of Cowboys 40, Packers 40.
Yes.
It's taken us all a few days to unpack. How do you feel about a tie? You watch that game, I believe it's called soccer.
Yes.
Or football, as some call it.
Sure.
Our producer, Peter Welton's way into that, and ties happen all the time for y'all. But, yeah, it takes a couple of days to process how you feel after a tie in the NFL.
Yeah, it sure does, and if I may, I don't think ties should exist. I do enjoy my soccer and my hockey and things of that nature over the years, so I have come to grips with the premise. But in the National Football League, it feels wildly unnecessary. Baseball doesn't have ties, and we ask why. Well, of course, we just don't do ties. We think it's a ridiculous thing. It's un-American, they might say in Bull Durham, and I just feel like the NFL should be right there. There's no reason you can't play till somebody scores. You only play one game a week. We don't have to catch a plane to get to our game for tomorrow. There's a lot to that, but if we just leave that aside and say, Bob, George, how should I feel about a 40-40 tie? It's kind of the year in a nutshell, isn't it? Because if you use the Larry David sort of contort your face and try to figure out how you feel about something, I think it would be this team. They're the number 1 offense and the number 32 defense, and seldom do we see such a thing of where on one side of the ball you feel pretty great, and on the other side of the ball you feel like this is trash. And I think a tie summarizes that pretty well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, and I've heard you talk about it this week. 10 minutes, maybe change that to 12. We had a couple of letters to our show this week on our radio station, The Ticket in Dallas, and I heard a really good suggestion that if the first team scores, in this case, a field goal, like the Cowboys did with their possession, now Green Bay's got the ball, that they should have the same amount of time that the Cowboys took to score. In other words, no 10-minute overtime, but just you get the ball at your own 25, and if it takes you 2 plays to score, you can put pressure on your opponent by taking 45 seconds to score a touchdown. Or in the case of the Cowboys, what if you took, whatever it was, 6 or 7 minutes to score a field goal? Well, now your opponent has, whatever that time was, 6 minutes to either kick a field goal or score a touchdown and win the game. How about that?
It's certainly one option. Isn't the other option just
add 2 minutes?
Each team gets the ball, and we see what happens. And I don't love the college system, but it's better than what the NFL's doing. And I just don't, I don't really buy that this requires, so like I heard Jerry say, well, we still want to respect the 3-hour window. Fine. There's been one Cowboy tie in 56 years. So it's not like this is happening very often.
Yeah.
So on the rare occasion where we can't sort things out after 4 quarters, let's just stay here until we do. And I just don't think that's going to be nearly as cumbersome and tedious as people say. So I would say, okay, Green Bay gets the ball. If they do better than a field goal, they win. If they kick a field goal, we keep playing. And I don't see what's wrong with that. Soccer, they have limited substitutions, and so guys literally can't move at a certain point, and that's just not worthy of any sort of extension in my mind. But in American football, where you have endless substitutions and seemingly big enough rosters, it feels like a very, very silly outcome. But that was a very, very silly game, George, and I guess my big takeaways are very consistent with what we've talked about here for what have we done, 4 or 5 episodes now?
Yeah, something like that.
I feel still like the 2 most important positions on a football team are head coach and quarterback, and I feel that in 2025 The Cowboys are getting much better than average from both of them. And maybe Schottenheimer is the one who really increased his score this week, because I think he easily outcoached a guy who we think is a pretty good coach in Matt LaFleur. And maybe all he did to outcoach him was just let Matt LaFleur make a bunch of ridiculous mistakes. But regardless, I thought Schottenheimer was the best coach on the field, and I thought Dak Prescott was the best quarterback on the field. And if you do that enough times, you're going to have a winning season and a chance at the playoffs. And I think we've seen it for 4 straight weeks, to be honest. Not necessarily that Dak has always been the best quarterback, because Jalen Hurts was very good in week 1, and Caleb was obviously very good in week 3. But Dak has never been anything short of the best offensive player each week, and that's remarkable. And now Schottenheimer, maybe that's where we should spend some time, George, is that imagine Schottenheimer's week last week. He had to deal with all the Micah noise. He had to deal with getting spanked by the Chicago Bears. He had to deal with a game where you're a touchdown dog in your own place and people are talking about it's desperate and maybe the season's already lost. And he had to deal with a broken offensive line, no CeeDee Lamb, and knowing that Micah was going to try to have a Randy Moss 1998 game. And in all of that, was able to design a game plan that put 40 points on the board and pretty much kept his quarterback untouched for the entire night. I think that's what you're looking for schematically from an offensive strategist, and I thought Schottenheimer was amazing.
Well, I thought he was too. I thought the game plan was just terrific, and even from the start of let's load up with 2-3 tight ends, let's smash the ball. Okay, that's not working so good. Let's go ahead and spread the field and start throwing it, but we've got to help out on that guy wearing number 1 in green, which I thought they did a great job of. And I know you've talked about it on your show this week, and going back and looking at the game, are we ready to call this Dak Prescott's best game ever? Given all the circumstances in the regular season. Yeah.
He's had some great ones. But I would say, given what is critically said about him, which is he doesn't play well in big games and in big spots, you could quickly argue that those games against Tampa Bay, home and away in week 1, those 2 years where Brady was there were unbelievable. You could probably name several others against the Eagles and so forth, but man, pound for pound, given what he had to work with and given the problems right in front of him, that like Micah played well enough to have 3.5, 4 sacks in that game, and Dak is the single reason it didn't happen. And if that's Tom Brady, if that's Drew Brees, if that's Peyton Manning, we're like, you see, that's a veteran quarterback who's just smarter than his opponents. But with Dak, nobody wants to really throw around the big compliments because there's so much there's so many preconceived notions about who he is. And I just think that's what this season can be for him, as a chance to sort of rewrite the narratives. And I think, like when people say, what do you like about Dak so much? Why do you defend him when the rest of us seem to agree that he's trash and that the Cowboys need a better quarterback? I say, because I think if you study his play in a detached sort of way, I know that's so hard, but if you can just detach the 30 years from Dak Prescott and say, okay, what am I looking for a quarterback at this very spot? Okay, I need him in pre-snap to recognize this and to coordinate this and to audible into this and to recognize this blitz and to set his offensive line protection and all these things that a quarterback has to do pre-snap. Dak does them not only at a good level, but at a great level most of the time. And then has to deliver the throw on time and on target and also move around in the pocket and just keep plays alive. And he does that very, very well. And yet somehow we still have it in our head that the Cowboys have a disadvantage at the quarterback position. And I don't think it jives with facts and reality. And I know that it eventually comes back to January and February. And I don't know how to resolve that any more than I knew how to resolve it with Tony Romo, who, by the way, I think has a wildly similar story. And that's the discussion for any Cowboys thing, George, is you say these guys are good, and yet they can't get out of the wild card round, so they're clearly not good. And it's frustrating for those players. It's frustrating for the media on either side of the discussion. And I'm sure it's frustrating for anybody who has ever taken a dollar from the Cowboys organization. But it's kind of where we are, and I don't know how to get out of this vortex until they do.
Well, welcome to the quarterback position in Dallas. This has been going on a long time.
Yes.
Roger used to get called a choker. Troy was called a guy who was too robotic and couldn't get it done. And then, in year 3, they take off. My guy, Danny White, got this team to 3 straight NFC title games, put them ahead in a game that has become one of the most legendary games ever in the catch, had an 80% winning percentage as a starting quarterback, and Cowboy fans couldn't wait to get him out of the job because he didn't win enough. He wasn't Roger. And
right.
It's out of whack with other quarterback jobs in this league.
But
as our friend Troy says, it comes with the dinner. You're expected to be good. You're expected to be a champion. But all I know is it's a streak now of 3 straight games. It's the longest in the NFL with at least 250 yards and 30 completions. It's the second time he's done that in his career. That's a really hard thing to do. And he's completed 72% of his passes, which is the most in the NFL right now. He's off to an incredible start, and we talked about it on our radio show on The Ticket this week. The sad reality is, and maybe it's this way in other parts of the country, but in this town, people just tend to nod their head and go, just what you said. Okay, we'll see it happens come January. Can we not enjoy it in September and October? Can we just look at a guy and go, wow, he's really playing well?
Yeah, and can we acknowledge that if doing this in September was really easy, wouldn't everybody do it? And it's not easy. You know, what these guys do is not easy on any level. And the fact that we just sort of dismiss it with such ease it's got to be frustrating. And so when we say that comes with the dinner, then maybe we shouldn't begrudge them for making the money. Like I think that's a huge part of the Dak and even Romo discussions over the years is that they are paid at the very top of the quarterback scale. I mean, when Tony Romo got his contract in 2013, I don't think he was number 1, but I do believe he was number 2 at the time to Peyton Manning's deal. And so he took a ton of money. And everybody's like, well, why does Romo get so much money if he doesn't win in the playoffs? And it's a great question, I guess, except that isn't really how contracts work. The contracts work based on what you do in the regular season to give your team a chance to go to the playoffs, and then the playoffs is legacy stuff. But I guess what I'm saying is in both cases, Romo and Dak have been paid absurd amounts of money relative to the time they played and relative to their playoff accomplishments. And maybe the way to break it down is you get the extra money here because of all the extra blame you're going to take as well. And so, you're going to get blamed for everything that isn't your fault, but at least you're going to be rich beyond your wildest dreams. Is that satisfying at all?
Well, I think that's part of it, the expectation of what you're making. And the money now is so crazy that's even, I would say, something that, well, maybe Troy did deal with it because he was the highest paid Cowboy at that time. But I don't think to this, I don't think $1 million in the early 90s sounded as crazy to us as $50 million does now.
$3 million a game is kind of where we are right now. Actually, more. I mean, Dak, if we're saying 60 and there's 17 games, then that's well north of $3 million a game. It's probably closer to 3.5. And the idea that a 3.5 hour sporting event gets you $3.5 million every single Sunday, it's mind boggling. At the same time, it's kind of based on two things. One, the revenues that this league generates, and two, the rarity of a quarterback who can do the job at a very, very high level, and so supply and demand. Let me go back to a stat from this week before we get too lost in the money weeds, I suppose, and that is this one. So Dak and the Cowboys had 40 points, 400 yards, and 0 turnovers. And that threshold sounds good, but not absurdly rare. And I looked it up, and there's 14 occasions of this in Cowboy history. They, of course, have won 13 of them and now have one tie. So 13-0-1 is kind of a funny record. But here's what I thought was wild, and I don't know if you saw the question on Twitter that I put out there, but of those 14 Cowboys games, would you like to wager out the pieces of the pie as to how many different Cowboy quarterbacks were part of those 14? And who has the most, and who has, can you guess out of 14 occasions in Cowboys history how many, let's say, Dak and Romo and Staubach and Aikman are responsible for personally?
I would say Dak and Romo will probably, and I did not see this. Bob, you put out a lot of tweets, and I love them, but I don't see all of them.
I'm a volume shooter.
You are, and I love it. It's one of the things I love about you. I would say that Romo and Dak have most of them. Troy may not even have but one or two, and maybe I'll throw in Danny has one.
Okay, so of the 14 all time, here's the credit for each one. Guys with one each: Troy Aikman, Roger Staubach, Danny White,
yes,
Tony Romo. They each have one.
Wow.
Players with two: Don Meredith.
Wow. Okay.
Players with three: nobody. 4, nobody. 5, nobody. 6, nobody. 7, nobody. Players with 8: Dakota Prescott.
Wow.
Has done it 8 times. Meredith 2. Nobody else has done it more than once. The 40 points, 400 yards, 0 turnovers offensive game from the Cowboys.
Wow.
8. That's pretty crazy, right?
That is crazy. That's a great number. And it helps when you have a ground game.
Yes.
And I think that's been I don't know if it's been the best thing, but it's been an element that has really helped out Dak put up these numbers in the first 4 weeks. Javonte Williams is second in the NFL in success rate of runs.
That's right.
I'm going to have you explain that here in a second. It's 65.1.
Okay.
And, I mean, look at any category: yards per carry, touchdowns. He's off to a great start. And I believe going into last week, he was second in yards after contact. Man, he is I didn't know what to expect, and he's been great.
Yeah, I think the story has emerged here with the number one offense in the league that Javonte Williams and George Pickens have been home runs. And they neither of them cost you much for 2025, but both of them will cost you a ton for 2026. And so you have to decide, is this a one-year deal for both of them? I would say with Williams, it's really easy because I think, you could probably do a deal right now for Javonte Williams at, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, $6 or $7 million a year probably, and you'd probably feel pretty good about that given his age and given what he's shown you so far. With Pickens, obviously the math is way different, where if you want him for 3 years, it might be 3 at 28 apiece, or 3 at 25, 4 at 25, or 3 at 30. I don't know what his market is, but we do know wide receivers who can be dudes can pretty much decide, they can write their own check, and that's going to be wild. But in both cases, George, they've been fantastic. With Williams, I don't think any of us had expectations at all because he had been so spare since he tore up his knee in Denver. But he's been great. and he runs like every play is the most important play of his life, and he's physical, and he's one of those running backs where you kind of think he sets the tone for the offense. Like they see his style, and then they start playing that style, and that can be your offensive line, that can be your wide receivers. But I think Javonte Williams has a infectious style, and it's a credit to him. For Pickens, I mean, that's what you dream of at wide receiver when CeeDee Lamb is either available or unavailable, is that I need another guy that terrifies defenses and punishes defenses if they don't double him, and just can sort of make the game into total chaos. And I thought George Pickens has been so good, and I think he's only going to get better. And when him and Lamb are out there, it should be unfair, and I think it is. And so I realize he's going to be expensive, and I realize people are terrified of his reputation. I don't have any hesitation on either. I would get a deal done sooner rather than later, because those guys are hard to find.
He's got a 3-game streak, George Pickens does, with a touchdown, and that's the longest of his career. So I think he's having fun here too. And
yes,
let's keep him happy.
He's got a quarterback.
Yes, it's by far the best quarterback he's had since he's been in the league. All right, the defense is another story. And even after giving up 40 and all those yards and all those big plays, call me crazy, but I saw some improvement for the Cowboys defense. And I'll try to explain that next in our Football Friends conversation. Okay, we've got the Cowboys and the Jets this week from the Meadowlands. And the Cowboys are coming off of a 40-40 tie against the Green Bay Packers, and it was another game where the defense just got shredded, big play after big play, not enough stops, especially when they needed them most, late in the fourth quarter or in overtime. Am I ridiculous to say this was a better performance than we saw against the Giants and Bears?
How?
Okay.
I'm not saying I disagree, but I would love to hear your thought process.
Well, I think the opponent was better.
Yes.
To begin with. And, they did give up 40, and no, they didn't get off the field when they really needed to. But I think, and no, this is a baby step.
Yes.
But in throwing situations, I did not see as many wide open receivers as I have the last couple of weeks. I think Deron Bland helps.
Yes.
I think James Houston showed out again and maybe turned in the biggest play of the game. That changed the tone of the game to knock the ball loose, and all of a sudden you've got at least a 10-point turnaround there.
Hot fries?
We can't tip our hat just yet, Bob.
Okay. Sorry. I got excited. No, I think you're exactly right, Georgie. For me, when I looked at the explosive plays, which give me indigestion, because I'll just say it again, in this league there is big belief that the turnover differential is still important, but not as important as the explosive play differential to some coaches. Now, we can debate, which is more important. We can say both are very important, but the Cowboys, to play winning football, can no longer give up this many explosive plays. And so against the Giants, it was 7. Against the Bears, it was 5, and against the Packers, it was 5. And so, just to let you know, they're the worst chunk play defense in the league right now through 4.
Okay,
and it's a remarkable ineptitude festival, and it has to stop. I want to say the league leaders last year gave up about 4.5 a game, and the Cowboys are giving up about 5.5 a game right now. So they're going to absolutely destroy the league leaderboards here if they keep this up. To your point, though, there was only one WTF pass on Sunday, and that was like the first pass of the game for the Packers where they went downfield and everybody looked confused. And in fact, Matthew Golden probably prevented Dontavian Wicks from a touchdown by sort of running into him.
Yeah.
And so that's amazing and remarkable. But honestly, the other chunk plays were all plays to the flat. The Jordan Love scramble, the Josh Jacobs kind of rugby pass to the sideline, a couple screen passes. Oh, the Josh Jacobs little pass out to the flat there in the final minute of regulation. I guess what I'm saying is there were 5 chunk plays, but only one looks like a secondary chaos moment, as you said.
Yeah.
And they seemed way more organized as a secondary. And I think you're right. That's probably Deron Bland returning, but now Malik Hooker's gone. And so you have very inexperienced and maybe not very good safety play to look forward to for the next several weeks.
Well, it hasn't been that great in the first 4 weeks.
That's true. But just imagine he beat out these guys for the job. These other plays,
I've always liked Wanye Thomas.
Okay, and he's a great special teams guy. Is he a great center fielder? We're about to find out. But these other plays, just a conveyor belt of linebacker problems. I think. I think the linebacker position is quickly becoming the big target on the whiteboard for opponents and maybe it goes back to that ridiculous screen the Bears ran, but now the Packers, who love screens, just did it all night. And really the disappointing one for me, and Kenneth Murray's had his problems and Sanborn's had his problems and Liafu is I don't know what's going on with him. I think he's probably your best linebacker available, but I also think he must drive the coaches nuts, and then we saw that ridiculous personal foul up from him, so maybe that explains what the coaches are seeing.
Yeah.
But, man, Shamar James, our young rookie from Florida, I was hoping for better from him. I don't know if you saw on the tape.
He got turned around on that one big pass play. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the Jordan Love scramble. So James comes on, and he's playing a lot in the fourth quarter, and the 2 big Packer chunk plays, the 25-yard scramble and then the 25-yard short pass to Jacobs that got them right into field goal. Both times, James just looks like he's just not very fast or athletic for a rookie. And then I went to check, and he barely ran a 4.7. And I just remember at Florida, they were like, man, he's always around the ball, sideline to sideline. He gets to the ball. He causes chaos. So I want to give him a chance. Maybe he was just confused or something on Sunday night. But I need these rookies to be the fastest guys on the field. So that wasn't particularly encouraging there.
I did see some better line play too, and it didn't always, it didn't result in a sack. It didn't result in anything big outside of I thought Ezeraku showed something, the most he has showed. Now it's a Green Bay line that's a little depleted. They were missing a couple of guys too. I don't know. I saw just a little more activity up front. The eyeball test to me, and I don't even have any stats really to back it up because hurries I know weren't that great, but it to the eyeball, 90% of it looked better, except the killer plays that they once again gave up on third down.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, you have Ezeraku and Clowney really playing well. I would say, in looking at both of them carefully this week, George, Clowney was chaotic probably in a good way, where he's bull in a china shop. I don't know that he always is able to sort of control where he's going, but he was flying around, running into stuff and causing chaos. I bet you Jadeveon Clowney was extremely sore because he didn't play that much, but he was running into collisions constantly.
Yeah.
Ezeraku is interesting, especially from the team that told us Micah Parsons wasn't great against the run, is to get another edge who's also in his 240s and also is very fast and athletic on the pass rush, but in the run game, there's a couple zone plays where he is getting moved way too easily by tight ends. In fact, if you can go to that Josh Jacobs touchdown and look at that play on the one where he kind of cuts back on Diggs into the end zone.
Yeah.
Go back and watch Ezeraku fly through the air as a tight end is just plowing him right out. I mean, that's his edge. So I'm going to give Ezeraku all the grace that a rookie deserves, but I'm also going to say, he might be like Bruce Irvin, if you remember him with the Seahawks. Here's a guy who's barely 235. Now Ezeraku probably is going to get bigger, and he's listed at 248. So maybe this is just a kid who was dealing with the ACC, and now he's in the NFL, and let's check back in 18 months and see where his body's at. But for now, probably a above average pass rusher and probably a below average run defender. And so, there's a lot of these guys. Dante Fowler's just like that. Now, Sam Williams is a big, strong guy. He can handle it. Marshawn Nealon is probably more of a run defender than a pass rusher. So James Houston is the guy who seems to keep making plays, but he also seems like their sixth option on the edge. So they've got a lot of work to do on this defense. And for me, and I wrote about this morning, and I bet you have plenty to say on this as well. To me, I know Matt Eberflus is going to take the brunt of this, and it's probably appropriate. But at the same time, I just feel like if you go through the last 5 drafts and you look at the defense, I believe the numbers today, and I want to make sure I get this right, Georgie, so let me find it real fast. But the Cowboys have had 45 picks in the last 5 drafts, and 26 of those 45 were spent on defense.
Okay.
And of those 26 players, you have Micah Parsons, who you just dealt away, and then 3 other guys I would say are solid starters or better. Osa, Deron Bland, and I'm going to give you a strong maybe on DeMarvion Overshown.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
Of 26 defenders. The others who at least help you and are roster guys and maybe have a chance, Sam Williams, although he already needs a contract, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Marshawn Nealon, Maris Liafu, Siobhan Ravel, who we haven't even seen play a down yet, and Donovan Ezeraku. They all have a chance. But when we talk about why does the defense stink, let me give you some reasons. Kelvin Joseph, 2nd rounder. Nashawn Wright, 3rd rounder. Chauncey Golston, 3rd rounder. Of course, Mozzie Smith would like to have a conversation here. Junior Fehoko was a 4th round defensive tackle.
Yes.
Could you use that? Overshown looks to be a stud, but let's be honest. He ripped a knee in 2023, his rookie year. He ripped a knee in 2024, his second year. Like any other player, we are saying this guy just, his body can't do it. He's Sean Lee or something like that. But because Overshown is a DFW guy we love and a Longhorn and all this stuff, it's like we're willing to cut him enormous amounts of slack, but bro, he is like 1 strike away from being a guy who simply his body can't do it. And then 2024, you'd like to think Marshawn Nealon and Liafu are starters and maybe unchallenged starters who you can just let play. And they're guys who are rotational at best. And then Kalen Carson looks like he's disappeared since his arrival. And, now it's like, Shamar James, I don't know, Jay Toaya. Is Siobhan Ravel a real person? And, so these 5 drafts, I understand Will McClay has a reputation. I understand the Cowboys have a reputation of already hitting all their first-round picks. But, man, I don't know what scheme you can run if in 5 years and 26 picks you basically got me 2.5 players that I can just put out there and not worry about it.
Well, that's a great point, and that's why they're 31st in points, 32nd in net yards, which, by the way, have you found the team in NFL history? Because I have not. This is only 4 weeks into the season. But has anyone ever been close to first in yards on offense and last in yards given up on defense for an entire season?
I have to believe in the crazy 80s it did happen, and I need to look into that because I swear to you,
I haven't gone that far back yet.
I swear my Lynn Dickey Packers probably did it when they're beating Washington 48-47 on Monday Night Football back in 83 or 84 or whatever that year was. That is intriguing. You know what comes to mind, and I'm sure everybody listening will love this, especially in Singapore, is the Lindy Ruff Stars, I think, were number 1 in offense and number last in defense. If you like 6-5 hockey games, that's what you're getting right now with your Big 12 Dallas Cowboys or your Dallas Steers, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Steers, I looked at the rankings, and I know you did as well, but we're now to a point where the offense is almost the offense is number 1, but they're basically top 10 in almost every category that we keep. So I keep 10 categories: points, yards, rushing yards, passing yards, turnovers, third downs, red zone, explosive plays, sacks per attempt, and time of possession. And so the Cowboys are top 10 in 8 of those. They have a few too many turnovers and time of possession. And then we flip it over to the defense, and they're bottom 10 in almost everything. Ironically, they're only 12th worse in rushing yards against. So they wanted to get better at stopping the run, George, and they're up to number 20 in stopping the run. So they have improved there. Unfortunately, they have gone down in every other category, and they're dead last in yards allowed, passing yards allowed, third downs allowed, chunk plays allowed, and then they're 31st in points against because somehow the Ravens have actually allowed more points than the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, how about that? I do think some of it is fixable when it comes to coverage and just trying to do whatever Matt Eberflus is looking to accomplish, but I just think this is going to be a wild ride for the defense, and they're going to give up chunks, and they're going to give up points, and it's back to the offense now. Okay, I know last week we barely won when we scored. We're going to need 45 this week. Can you do it? And complimentary football, I think that's why they came out very conservative against the Packers, because I think that was Schottenheimer's plan. Hey, let's grind this sucker out, and let's really make this a 3 or 4 possession game per half. And the problem was he found out in those first 2 possessions, okay, it's going to be this. We got to spread the field a little bit, and I'm going to have to rely on 4 because we can't go 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends against these dudes and just grind it out 4.5 yards per carry.
Right. And really, regardless of the sport, it's the same concept where we just need our offense to erase the bad things our defense is doing. We need the ultimate eraser. We need whiteout, which is a offense that just keeps scoring and keeps sponging up all the spills. And that's where we are. Now, here's the thing. They got 6 games here. I'm going to do this because I like to do this, especially if you took the over in the season win totals. Your next 6 games: Jets, Panthers, Commanders at home, Broncos, Cardinals, Raiders.
That's not that scary.
How many playoff teams do you see there? Maybe Washington.
I was going to say Washington, but man, I think they're going to have to fight like heck to get in the playoffs, given their schedule and what we've seen so far.
Yeah, we don't know about the Broncos either, but we do know our life tells us that pretty much every time the Cowboys go to Denver, bad things happen. So I'm going to say getting that game in Denver in 4 weeks is going to be tough. But of these 6 games, I'm not saying you're going 6-0. I'm not saying you're going 4-2. I'm saying when the game starts, I'm going to sit down thinking the Cowboys can get a win today all 6 times. Now, that might be delusional, and I might be delusional, George, but I guess what I'm saying is have coach, have quarterback will travel, and I'm saying in these cases with CeeDee Lamb hypothetically coming back, and I know I have Javonte Williams, and I know I have George Pickens, and I know I have Kevontae Turpin, and I know my offensive line can regain health with Beebe and Booker at some point here before too long. Let's put it this way. A offense that can score 40 should give you more optimism than a great defense and an offense that can't score. Like the Jets, for instance, are a what should be a very good defense, but their offense could never get them 40 if their life depended on it. So that's just flipping which unit is better. And this might actually be a team-building exercise. If you had $300 million to spend on your cap, George, how much would you put on offense and how much would you put on defense? You could argue this is the CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons discussion of, okay, I'm paying my quarterback. I can pay one other guy. Do I want a playmaker or do I want a sack guy? And which one actually leads to more wins in the National Football League or a more competitive franchise? And I think the answer is the answer the Cowboys came up with, probably.
I think
it probably is. So,
I think most teams would. I would go. I don't know what the percentage. 60-40, 70. Yeah, 60-40 sounds good in my head.
Yes.
And you're talking about a Jets team that we keep talking down about because they're 0-4. They are top 10 in just about every defensive category except forcing turnovers. So,
which is the biggest of them.
Yes.
Right? Because they're last in the NFL.
They have not forced one.
They're last in the NFL in turnover differential.
That's 4 football games without a turnover.
They're
Ain't
due,
funny.
right?
Yeah.
They're probably due.
Okay, let's talk about the Jets. Next here on our Cowboys edition of the Musers, the podcast, Football Friends. There are places in the NFL that just kind of give me the creeps, and the Meadowlands playing the Jets is just one of those. My perception is the Cowboys have a hard time winning there, and it's somewhat accurate. The last time they won in New Jersey was 2003. That's how long ago it was. Now, they've only played the Jets 13 times overall, and but the last time they played there was 2019. They got beat by 24-22.
That was a very frustrating game.
So
was 2011.
So
right?
2011 was 27-24 Jets.
Wasn't that like 9/11 or something? I feel like that was the 10-year anniversary of 9/11.
It was, yes, very good, Bob. 9/11, 2011.
We had a very frustrating Des Bryant night, as I recall, as that opened the season in 2011.
Yeah,
and there was some. You're right. When they go there, bad things happen.
Yeah, generally, they lost there in 1990. I don't remember much about that game. I do remember 1978 because I think Danny started that game. Danny White started for Roger Staubach, and they won at Old Shea Stadium. The Jets are 0-4. They've got all sorts of offensive problems, but they do have a solid defense, and they have a quarterback who can run. Does that scare you?
Boy, that run on Monday night was fun. Just complete chaos. I am a Justin Fields believer in the sense that when he left Ohio State, I definitely saw a potential star. So much so that when the Bears did their big trade to get to him, I'm like, oh boy, the Bears got themselves a quarterback finally. And there's, I think in modern NFL, George, we almost need a name for the quarterback that kind of busts out early and then revives his career, a la Sam Darnold, maybe a la Geno, maybe Baker. There's several guys who are thought of as this can be our franchise quarterback, and then we give him 2.5 years and he flops, and then he sort of recovers and has a great career. Maybe not exactly at the level you expected, but still at a very, very high level. And then we all say, well, duh, he was. This is a Sam Darnold we saw at USC. We shouldn't be shocked. We said he was going to be great. It just took him longer. And so the money is so high, the expectation is so high that the original franchise seems quick to dispose of the guy, but by the time they're in their mid to late 20s, they actually start to figure out this level. And I guess what I'm saying is I think Justin Fields can still be that guy. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I don't know how long and where I can depend on it because it becomes this year-to-year contract, which might even be the bigger discussion for we need a spring league where these guys can be like your property as a franchise, but then you are willing to give him like 2 years of 10, 12 starts in the spring league to really actually learn how to play football. I guess what I'm saying is I think this is a talent development problem for a league that doesn't really think that through.
Yes.
And so with Fields, I see all the tools. I see the unmolded clay, but I also say for this Jets generation, they're just not going to have the patience to ride it out. They're frustrated. They want to believe that Aaron Glenn is a great coaching hire. I think it is. But you want to talk about pulling things all the way down to the studs and kind of starting over again. And the Jets just don't have the energy to start over every single time like they had to. I think the Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, Hard Knocks Jets, this couple years that they've just endured. I think that took the battery life out of just about every Jets apologist left on planet Earth.
The poor Jets.
They're just so tired.
Yeah, since Joe Namath, they had Richard Todd in the early '80s. Rex Ryan almost got him there. Back-to-back AFC title games.
Yeah.
2010, 2011.
Yep.
I believe, but since then they've had one winning record since then. And on our radio station we talk about this all the time. Most beaten down fans in the NFL. Cleveland's up there. But Jets fans have to be, who really remembers that now? You could say, well, they've been closer to the Super Bowl than the Cowboys have been the last 31 years. If you want to rub salt in that wound, Bob, but
I don't think anybody would.
Yeah, they've had bad football for decades in New York, and I would think the Jet fan is pretty beaten down.
Yeah, I think they may take the cake for most beaten down. I think that's the idea right there. That I think ownership is so important in the National Football League, and I think the Jets have consistently found that their owner is a far more low profile, incompetent owner. Like we have a very high profile incompetent owner, in my opinion, here in Dallas, George, and everybody knows what he does, and he's covered constantly by the news cycle. I think there are others that keep a much lower profile, and they don't have Netflix documentaries built around their life and times. And I think Cincinnati does a great job of that. I think Chicago's done a great job of that, and I think the Jets have done a great. So if you want the key to turning your franchise around, it's probably get an owner who has enough sense to kind of stay out of the way and just ask how he can help. And I feel like Washington has done that recently. I definitely know the Ford family up in Detroit is like, okay, we're hiring Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, and we're getting out of your way. We trust you. Go do what you're here to do. And so, there's a lot to that. But just I think overall with the Jets, it's the same as it ever was. I see a lot of really fun players who I would love to extract and get to my team. And just the collection of them always looks like they're a team that takes all of the penalties, makes all of the mistakes, and just sort of jets their way through a season. Now, can they beat the Cowboys? Of course they can. But this is a team you really need to beat.
Yes, and that's interesting about the next few opponents for the Cowboys, those 6 games. That's interesting. I wouldn't be that disappointed with 3-3 overall. Then.
No.
I mean, if you're going to do something great this season, 4 or 5 would be fantastic. I just don't think that's realistic, and I think 3-3 during all that would put you in decent position for whatever November could bring.
Well, I think step one for a new franchise, and it's ridiculous to call it new because your quarterback is like entering his 10th year as starter. So you're not a new franchise. You're not a rebuilding franchise. But step one is we are very tricky at our place. And the Cowboys are 2-0, even though they're undefeated at home. Let's put it that way. But in both cases, they gave up a ridiculous amount of points and scored a ridiculous amount of points. On the road, they're 0-2, and they've been far more disappointing on both sides of the ball. The defense played pretty good in the first game. The offense played okay for a while in the game in Chicago, but they've been far more disappointing on the road, and now they have a stretch where they play 4 of the next 6 away. And so, yes, the opponents all seem gettable, Jets, Panthers, Broncos, Raiders, but you've got to prove you can win an away game if you want to be taken seriously. And I will say your away games after the stretch are at Detroit and at Washington on Christmas Day. And so you need to start taking this act on the road now. The Jets have you, and then they go to London. So I don't know if there's any sort of advantage to think about there. But, it's a very frisky defense. They have Sauce Gardner. They have Quinnen Williams, who are both superstar players. They also have a number of very nice players. I don't know if Jermaine Johnson's going to be able to go, and Will McDonald gets to the passer. And they've got guys I like. Offensively, it's Garrett Wilson, and it's a bunch of dudes. Now, they're going to try to run the football, and they're successful at running the football. And they've put a ton into their offensive line, including the last 2 drafts. They've put their first-round pick on their left tackle from Penn State in 24 and their right tackle from Missouri in 25. And then they went and got Jason Taylor's kid, Mason Taylor, to be their tight end out of LSU, who I like very much. So they're investing in their offense, but it's a anonymous OC that came along with Aaron Glenn from Detroit, and they're having a really hard time staying out of their own way with turnovers and penalties, which is what we expect from a Jets offense, isn't it?
Yeah. And last week we wanted the Cowboys to compete. They did just that. They tied a good Packers team, a team that we all think is really good, and I think they will be. How about this week? Defense. We won't even say defense, just put a D somewhere in that word. Just defense, couple of stops. I feel like I'm back in my old Arena League football
Yep.
days where Will McClay cut his teeth with the Cowboys organization. That was back when the Cowboys owned the Desperados, the Arena League football team. And he always said if you could get 1 or 2 stops and a half, you were going to win.
Right.
I almost get that feeling now with this Cowboys team. Let's put it at 2. 2 stops a half, and I think you win.
Yeah, I think there's something to that as well. And I honestly think that's an argument, by the way, to ramp up your risk. I know we want the goal of defense is to play sound fundamentally, but I do think if your choices are a slow death or a fast death, maybe do the one that gives you a chance at making a play, like the James Houston's strip sack, which absolutely turned the game on Sunday night against Green Bay, and that was not necessarily a risky call, but it was trying to get your guys in a position to turn the game with a simple turnover, and maybe you have to sort of game theory your way through things and say, okay, as a coaching staff, what's our best path to victory? And our best path to victory, the answer can't be just let the defense, give up, yards all the time. Like, they have to lean into whatever they're good at. I just don't know what they're good enough at, George, right now, because they don't really have pass rushers. In the past we say, okay, well, set everything up for your pass rush, but that was when you had Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, and those guys are gone. Even Dorrance Armstrong's gone. So who can I count on to beat their man? I don't know. Maybe Clowney, maybe Ezaraku, maybe Fowler, but we just haven't seen it in the first month. They're horrible at getting to the passer, but that maybe you just need to be willing as an offense to go for it more on fourth downs and to throw downfield more and to say, conservative thinking from our coaching staff is not helping us win games. And so maybe we need to open it up on both sides of the ball and say, what do we have to lose? Let's put teams on their heels more. I don't know. I'm grasping. You're the 32nd best defense. Try literally anything else right now.
Look like the 22nd best defense in the league, and I think you'd be okay in most of your games.
George, if they could have a league average defense, they could absolutely be a strong playoff team because their offense is good enough. That's what we've learned so far is the offense is good enough, even without CD and Cooper Beebe and Tyler Booker, and that should give us a ton of optimism. They're using tactics. They've got better talent. Things are happening on offense that are very exciting to me, starting with my quarterback is balling out. But defensively, man, I don't know what the plan is until you start using those Micah draft picks. So I guess let's get to April, but we got 13 more games to go before April, so we can't get there yet.
That could be a lot of numbers here in the next few months. All right, Hot Fried Georgie Player of the Week from the Green Bay game. We got to go with Dak, don't we?
Okay, I love it.
31 out of 40, 319, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and best throw of the night for me was, and I still don't know the complete story of it. Do you really think that catch by Tolbert along the boundary that ended up putting them in field goal range instead of touchdown range, do you think he was throwing that ball away? Was that is this the Joe Montana catch discussion, or was he putting it up there where he'd have a chance at it?
Yeah, I think if you go back and look at that play, I think the defensive back is staying on top of Tolbert, and so it calls for a back shoulder throw to where, you sort of wall off the defender. Now, of course, it's not a back shoulder throw because he's running for his life.
So off balance, but that's as close as he could get. Yeah.
But he is throwing it short, hoping Tolbert can come back to the ball. And what happens after that is Tolbert just making a great play to stay in bounds. But I do think the relative ball location is such that he's trying to give his guy a chance to make a play. And the guys in this league, even the guys who you don't think are good enough for a roster spot sometimes, are still special players. And props to Tolbert. I think through a lot of this, Tolbert has made progress because what was it, the Giants game? It was a do or die fourth down catch that he had to make.
Yeah,
and so let's give Tolbert a little bit of credit. We've seen some growth this year from him, even though it's not as fast as we want it to be.
I've been waving the Jalen Tolbert pennant for the last few years, and I get shouted down a lot. So I'm glad to see him making some plays, because the guy I saw, South Alabama, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Man, beast. Just
yes.
Beast. But to your point, that's this league. It's full of beast. There's a lot of players out there that are terrific in college that just I think if he can play like he has these last couple of years, I think Jalen Tolbert can have a nice NFL career.
That's absolutely right. And so, Dak, I think there were a lot of really big-time throws, but the one I really enjoyed was also on that 3rd and 6 when they have a blitz right in his face, and he backfoots a long, perfect throw to Turpin on the sideline as well. So I think we're seeing big-time throws. He still leads the league. His big-time throw to turnover-worthy play differential still leads the league. He's playing fantastic football, and I think it's okay for us to for the city of Dallas to admit that quarterback is not a problem right now, and may that continue.
All right, Cowboys and Jets at noon Central Time on Sunday, and Bob and I will be back next week for another edition of The Musers, the podcast Cowboys edition. Football Friends. Thanks to our producer, Peter Welton. Peter's something else, isn't he, Bob?
Oh, Peter's the best.
Just a master of technology and producing and friendship. And, let's do this again next week. What do you say?
Can't wait.